Wow. This is so fun to be able to be here on Easter Sunday, of all things. So I have to thank Reverend Dr. Susie for inviting me, and whoever else was behind that. That was a really great idea. I'm excited. So I have to tell you in just a minute. I should have had this prepared, I guess. We all have probably concepts and definitions of what we thought Easter was when we were kids. And if someone had asked me what mine was when I was a little girl, I would have said, well, Easter means that you get a new dress, new shoes, a new hat, new purse, and new gloves. Am I the only one? And there she is, right there, with her hat. Of course, Drenya. I'm not the only one child that had those kind of things as well as you. For example, there's one little boy who believes that Lent is the fuzzy stuff that you find underneath your bed. Another believes that Palm Sunday is when Adam and Eve found out they were boy and girl, and then they used the palms to cover themselves. And I love this one. There's the little girl who came home from Sunday school on Easter Sunday and told her mother she could understand about Christ, but not the roses. And then asked, why was Christ a rose? So, out of the mouths of babes. And then there's the cartoon with Hagar. Someone asked him, do you believe there's life after death? Hagar, with his ever-present tired look, answers, hey, I'm not sure there's fun after 40. If Hagar knew about the Easter paradigm, he would believe in both fun and life after death. During World War II, a church in London was preparing for the harvest Thanksgiving, and in the center of the gifts was a sheaf of corn. But the service was never held because on that Saturday night there was an air raid, and the church was destroyed by bombs. The next spring, on the site where the church lay in ruins, there appeared shoots of green. All through the summer, these shoots grew until they were harvested as corn in the fall. Not even the bombs and ruins could destroy the seeds of the life of the corn. And of course, this is a resurrection story, isn't it? Even though it's a bit different than the story of the crucifixion and resurrection of Jesus Christ. Its message is the same, that life is stronger than destruction and even death. Yeah, it is hot. Are you hot? Is it hot in here? Could we do something about that? Maybe.
The AC just came on.
Oh, thank you very much. Ask and you shall receive. For me, that story is one of the messages that I have extracted from the biblical story of the crucifixion and resurrection of Jesus Christ. And is, of course, the idea that life is eternal. Dr. Holmes confirms that in the textbook, and this is what he writes. The resurrection is the death of the belief that we are separated from God. For death is the illusion alone and not to reality. God did not die. What happened was that man awoke to life. The awakening then must be on the part of the person, since God already is life, the life within us. And that's the end of the quote. Now, Dr. Holmes and all other theologians aren't the only ones that believe in life eternal. The scientific world has its theory as well. So listen to this. I don't know how many of you remember Wernher von Braun, the great scientist, probably in the 80s and before. And he wrote this. Science has found nothing can disappear without a trace. Nature does not know extinction. All it knows is transformation. And then he goes on to write, now if God applies this fundamental principle to the most minute and insignificant parts of his universe, doesn't it make sense to assume that he applies it also to the masterpiece of his creation, the human soul? I think it does. And everything science has taught me and continues to teach me strengthens my belief in the continuity of our spiritual existence after death. Nothing disappears without a trace. And that's the end of the quote. Science telling us and confirming what we believe as metaphysicians and as people of spirit. Now, the other idea that I get from Easter is that it is particularly important for us to remember the symbols of the story can be interpreted in light of their metaphysical meaning, especially in relationship to the events that are taking place within ourselves. Those of you who have taken the course in Metaphysical Bible interpretation know that the stories in Scripture can be related to the unfoldment of the individual soul. How many of you have had Metaphysical Bible? 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. All right. You must be afraid to raise your hand. Sure, we used to teach it here. And it was one of the most important aspects of the education, I believe, of religious science. And so I'm going to do some metaphysical interpretation of the story of the resurrection of Jesus. It's interesting to me that the word Easter, as a verb intransitive, defined in nautical terms, means to veer or shift to the east. Now you might say, well, why are you comparing that to a ship or whatever, nautical terms? Well, I just take a word which means to show forth. It's defined as an example, model, ideal, or pattern of excellence. When I put the two together, I can say that the Easter paradigm means there is a model, ideal, or pattern of excellence to be shown from within. And that applies to every single one of us. Not one of us are left out. So that means that we don't have to wait until we die to have a resurrecting experience or a resurrection in our life. It's simply said it's a change. It's a season of change, a time of growth and renewal that takes place in every area of our expression if we allow it. Paul said to his followers, or wrote to them and said, "Awake thou that sleepest, and Christ shall give you light." And I think what happens for a lot of us is we go to sleep to the spirit that's within us. And it's up to each one of us to awaken, to rise up, to have a resurrection experience and do something new, change our minds, have a new way, a new vision, and a forward movement. So the symbols of the Easter story can be the nuggets of wisdom that help us to reawaken to that truth, that we are one in God, in, as, and of God, and that the Christ Spirit is alive and well within all of us. So, here are some of the symbols that we can use for self-growth. The denial by Peter is one. If you remember the story, at the Last Supper, Jesus with his 12 disciples, he said to Peter, "Before this is over, you're going to deny me." And Peter said, "You've got to be kidding. You're my master, you're my teacher, you're my friend. Are you kidding me?" He couldn't believe it. But before the evening was over, he denied him not only once, but 3 times. And when I reminded myself of that story, I had to say to me, I think I've denied the Christ presence in me more than 3 times. And I do that every time I'm afraid that I won't have what I need. I can't find a solution to a challenge that's before me. I don't have enough faith to make the changes I know I need to make, so I stay put and deny the Christ presence within me. Anybody else do that? A few of us. Yeah. I need a drink. Is this mine?
It's all yours.
Thank you.
Nice glass.
So, we're somewhat like the 2 caterpillars who were inching along the ground when suddenly there was an enormous shadow shrouding over them. And then just as suddenly, the shadow disappeared. A beautiful monarch butterfly had momentarily soared overhead and blocked the sun's rays from the ground beneath the 2 butterflies to be. As the monarch flew off, one caterpillar looked up and said to the other, "You couldn't pay me to go up in one of those things." Fear of change. It's a killer. And it will cause the best of us to deny that we have the power to move forward with ease and under grace. That cocoon of fear has to go. Can't stay. It will keep you stuck. Comes in childhood, and just simple little things. Even from the moment he was telling us that how comfortable we feel in the womb, and then we come out into the world, and there's that separation. And then we get smacked on the butt, and that's shocking, even for an infant, but it's recorded somewhere. And then other little things happen. Another child is born, and mommy doesn't pay as much attention to me as she used to. There must be something wrong with me. Separation. So it goes on and on. I'm sure if I asked every single one of you what that